Moving on, how to use read.table to extract data which are larger in size. So with much larger data sets, we have to do some specific things which will, prevent R from, stuck on the data. So you should specify certain things which will make R programming run much faster. First of all, read the help page for R read.table, which contains many hints for your possible data extraction, and depends upon the necessity of you. And there is a much more newer possibilities coming into extracting data when it comes to statistical analysis. So you can always make a rough calculation of the memory required for your data set. Let's say you have a 4 GB RAM, and if the data set which you are going to pull from your table, if it is larger than the amount of RAM, you can just you don't have to do it that way. Maybe you can split the data and do it part by part, but you don't have to do it directly. And you can set comment at character equal to null if there are no commented lines in your file. R automatically searches for this comment at character, which is your comments in the data, and you can stop this by setting comment at character. If there is no comments in your data, you can just set this comment at character equal to null, and this will prevent R from searching at this comments in the data. Moving on, so you should use this call classes argument, which when you specify this option, instead of going for the default, it will make read.table run much faster, and it was often indicated as twice as faster than what it runs when it is in default. So in order to know this, like what you have to do, you should understand your data first, and what classes of data, what classes of columns are existing in your data to do this. Let's say you have a column, numeric column, then you can just set call classes equal to numeric, and easier way to figure out the classes of each column is the following way. Let's say you have a table data table.txt. As I have a sample table, I can show you that. And let's say you want to find the classes of all the table sample.txt. I'll show you it in R. Moving on to R console, setting a variable called initial, which will read the table and the number of rows you want to specify. As there are 5 rows, we will not be specifying the number of rows. Read.table, there was an error in the name specified. Changing read.table, you will get the warning message as always. And now if you display initial, you'll find there are 2 columns with the variables. Now, how can you find the classes? There is a function called sapply. I'll tell you what it does. Let's say I define a variable called classes and use this sapply function. Again, there was a spelling mistake in initial. I'll correct that, and now you will find the classes have been applied. Now, this classes, what it contains, you'll find v1 as a factor and v2 as an integer. Now, as I said you earlier, character sets most of the time in R, it automatically is treated as factors, and integers as always integers. Now you find the classes of v1 and v2. v1 is a factor and v2 as an integer. Now you can specify this call classes in while reading the table. Let's say I want to read the table much faster. Let's assume if there are more number of rows in this table, and you want to read this table. Let's say I create a table called sample table. You should be careful while using R, because R is mostly case sensitive. Read.table of sample dot text, comma, you should specify the call classes equal to classes. This classes is a variable which contains v1 as a factor and v2 as an integer. This will make much faster reading data. Ignore the warning message here, but this will help you read data much faster if your data has more number of rows. And you can also set n rows, which will limit the number of rows you want to extract from the data table. Let's say you don't want to run the analysis on the entire set of data, but you want to run it on a certain limit of data. So you don't need to extract. Let's say there are 1 lakh rows and you want to run the analysis only on 100 rows. You can specify the number of rows, and this will help you. It doesn't go with the speed of R programming, but it can reduce the memory usage. So this is just it's a mild overestimate, which is okay. And so I'll show you the next thing. Setting n rows is simple. So let's say you want to read only the top 2 rows of the sample.txt. You can use top2. I'm creating a variable called top2, and I'm using read.table of sample.txt, comma n rows equal to 2. Now you have read only 2 rows from the table into the dataset top2. Now if you display top2, you will find only the top 2, the 2 rows being inserted into sample.txt. This can help you considerably when you want to reduce the size of the data you are inserting into. Now moving on, how to calculate the system capacity.